I'd like to convene the Single Family Design Board for May 24th, 2021. May I have roll call, please?
Thank you, Chair Miller. I will now start the roll call. Chair Miller.
Here.
Vice Chair Sweeney.
Here.
Board Member Kalas.
Here.
Board Member Klein.
Here.
Board Member Motisha.
Here.
Board Member Ziegler.
Here.
Thank you. We have a quorum.
Thank you. If anyone with public comment, any member of the public may address the board for up to 2 minutes on any section that's not scheduled on this agenda or a public discussion. Barbara, do we have anyone that would like to speak?
Thank you, Chair Miller. If you are attending by webinar and would like to comment on an item not on today's agenda, please raise your hand by clicking the hand icon on your GoToWebinar control panel, which indicates that you wish to speak. While we wait for hands, Jillian, did we receive any written correspondence for items not on today's agenda?
We received one item of written correspondence from Bob Cunningham that was distributed prior to the board, prior to this meeting.
Okay. Thank you. There are no hands raised, so I'll hand it back to you, Chair Miller.
All right, thank you. Moving on to item B, approval of the minutes of the Single Family Board meeting for May 10th, 2021. May I have a motion for approval, please?
I'll move.
Do you have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you. Gotcha. Thanks, Joe. Let's go through the items, please. Item 1, 1326 Hillcrest Road. Item 2, 524 West Valerio Street. Item 3, 1402 Grand Avenue. Item 4, 1402 Grand Avenue. Hearing no changes or comments, may I have a vote, roll call, please?
Thank you. I will now start the roll call vote. Vice Chair Sweeney.
I'll abstain because I was not present for the meeting.
Board Member Kalas.
Yes.
Board Member Klein.
Yes.
Board Member Motisha.
Yes.
Board Member Ziegler.
Yes.
And Chair Miller.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes.
And just as a quick question, Fred, did you have an opportunity to review the video of the past meeting yet? Just curious.
Not yet, but I will before our next meeting.
Great, thank you. All right, moving on to the consent calendar for May 17th. May I have a motion for approval, please?
I'll move.
May I have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you. Ms. Burkott, could we go through the items, please?
Sure. Item A was for 1804 Lighthouse Way. The action was for approval of review after final. Item B was for 1806 Lighthouse Way. The action was for approval of review after final. Item C was 1402 Grand Avenue. The action was for project design approval and final approval. And item D was for 1402 Grand Avenue. The action was for project design approval and final approval. The reviewers were Miller and Klein.
All All right, thank you. Hearing no changes or comments, may I have a roll call, please?
Thank you. I will now start the roll call vote. Vice Chair Sweeney,
I'll abstain. I was not present.
Board Member Kalas,
Yes.
Board Member Klein,
Yes.
Board Member Motisha,
Yes.
Board Member Ziegler,
Yes.
and Chair Miller.
Yes,
Thank you. Motion passes.
thank you. Moving on today's consent calendar for May 24th, 2021. May I have a motion for approval, please?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you. May I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, I think that you both went at the same time.
I'm easy.
All right. We'll have Klein second it. Can we go through the items, please?
Yes, thank you. Item A was for 1330 San Miguel. No action was taken. It was continued with the return to consent. Item B was 945 Garcia Road. The action was for final approval. Item C was for 413 Wyola Road. The action was for project design approval and final approval. Item D was for 111 Calle Bello. The action was for project design approval and final approval. And item E was for 234 Ramedo Road. The project was continued indefinitely with comments. The reviewers were Sweeney and Klein. Thank you.
All right, thank you. May I have a roll call, please?
Oh, you need a motion, Mr. Chair. I'll move.
Oh, may I have a motion for approval, please?
I
Oh, we
believe
already
we have,
did that. We did that
yes,
already.
do the roll call.
Roll call, please.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Thank you. I will now start the roll call vote. Vice Chair Sweeney,
Yes.
Board Member Kalas,
Yes.
Board Member Klein,
Yes.
Board Member Motisha,
Yes.
Board Member Ziegler,
Yes.
and Chair Miller.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes.
All right, thank you. Moving on to item D, announcements. Requests by applicants for continuances and withdrawals, future agenda items and appeals. Do we have any of these items, Ms. Burkhardt?
No, nothing for today, Chair Miller. Thank you.
All right, great.
I have one
And
announcement.
Yes, please.
I would just like to let everybody know that I was contacted by one of the neighbors on the 1326 Hillcrest Road project. They were voicing concerns that they had over the tree removals, which were discussed in our last meeting. I suggested that they write a letter and attend our next meeting. And I just wanted to let everybody know that I had received that communication from the neighbor.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Chair, I have a quick question for Ms. Burkhardt.
Yes.
Next Monday is a holiday, I think. Do we meet on Tuesday for consent?
Yes, consent will be on Tuesday next week. Correct.
Okay, thank you. And then I was made aware you all received a late notice from Ms. Brooke with regards to an ordinance that covers a new approach to how potential projects are appealed to City Council through the SFDB and ABR. And at some point in the future, staff will, I'm told, be coming to us to explain what that means and what our obligations are for that new ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sweeney. So on the follow-up, Ms. Burkhardt, could you have that be scheduled?
Yes, we'll schedule that when we're ready. We'll let you
Okay.
know.
All right, thank you. All right, moving on to subcommittee reports. I don't believe we have any.
No subcommittee reports today. Thanks.
All right, thank you. Do we have a representative? Moving on to our agenda for item number 1. Do we have a representative for that project?
Yes. Hello?
Hi, I hear you.
Great. Well, I can see you, but here we go.
Oh,
You've
there
got
you
me.
are. Hello, Mr.
I just decided to come back. For the last hearing was so
course you
much
did.
fun. Here I am for a repeat. No, hopefully it won't be a repeat. I am Jarrett Gorin from Vanguard Planning, and I think, do you guys want to read this in to the record first?
Yes, I do. Thank you. It's item number 1 is 1025 East Gutierrez Street. It's a continued item for project design approval. Proposal to demolish an existing 199 square foot 1-car garage and construct a new 455 square foot 2-car garage and a 190 square foot accessory space studying storage with a 654 square foot accessory dwelling unit and 128 square foot deck above. Project design approval is requested. Project will require neighborhood preservation findings, and project was last reviewed April 12th, 2021. Now, Mr. Sweeney, do we have minutes from the previous meeting?
Yes, and I'll read those for the board's consideration. Was continued indefinitely to the full board with the following comments. The architectural should be more reflective of the Pueblo or mission style nature of the main residence on the property. The fenestration be studied carefully. Double hung windows are recommended and are appropriate to the style of architecture. Consider reorienting the nature of the windows above the garage doors and possibly introducing a third window. Consider moving the two-car garage doors closer together to create more pilaster relief on either side of the outside edge of the garage doors. Consider placing a two-piece mission tile brow over the pair of French doors and the primary entry door on the second floor on the northeast elevation. Properly illustrate the manner in which the guardrail will be constructed and provide associated details. It is suggested that glass doors on the first floor include division lights similar to those illustrated on the second floor of the northeast elevation in the current drawings. Number 8, the applicant shall discuss stormwater tier ratings with staff and propose appropriate paving materials that meet the tier requirements that they are subject to. Number 9, consider simplifying, reducing the gable element and consider using the taller flat roof in lieu of the same. This was on an action by Collis, Sweeney, 6-0, motion carried.
Thank you, Thank you very much, Mr. Sweeney. So, Mr. Gorin, could you please just kind of go through addressing those different items? That'd be great.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm just going to walk you through this one because really the only thing the board liked last time was the mass bulk and scale and the position on the site. We got a lot of comments and went back, and we didn't change the floor plan of this, but we pretty much completely redid the exterior based on the comments we got. And so I guess, Mr. Bolton, if you could go, I don't think we really need to look at the site plan. If we could go down, rather than get into this 3D stuff, let's go down to sheet A 2.0 and just start off looking at the elevations in 2 dimensions. So we abandoned the gable altogether. What we did instead is go to a complete flat roof. We broke the flat roof up, so we've got a taller section over the common areas inside the house, and then a lower plate over the bedrooms and bathroom in the back of the house. We copied the parapet style off of the main house. So it sort of has a flat parapet that just has this really simple corner detail, that little scallop thing. We liked that suggestion of how to incorporate the doorway that goes back to the trash enclosure. In looking at this, we thought that the sketch that you guys did, we liked it a lot, but we thought it was a little ornate for this accessory structure. So we just simplified it into a simple radius, but that's a stucco wall that's in plane with the rest of the wall on the front of the house. You can see that what we did here on the front is to move those 2 doors closer together. to get the more relief on each side. Rather than exploring a third window, we condensed everything into one larger window. So that's a fixed pane with two smaller double hungs on the sides, which is believed that the main house also has a similar window on the front elevation, but that's a very characteristic Pueblo style setup. That was one apartment I lived in once. So we like the way the one window looks. We had tried it with 3 very vertical windows, and we liked it, but it looked a little bit modern to us. So we just went and looked at the original house, and we think this window works the way we have it, and it lets a lot of light into that room. So you can see the side view of the eyebrow that we added here. And that's got the bracket detail where you have the horizontal bracket going across the bottom of the roof. And then it's got a bracket that comes out and supports that and then goes back under. And that's pretty, you see that around town. There's one down on Cabrillo Beach Pavilion. There's one on a project that I did that's on the corner of Laguna and Canon Perdido that went through HLC. And that was a really critical detail in that project. So that was a good solution for this eyebrow. We showed the Spanish tile correctly on the eyebrow this time. It's a 2-piece Spanish tile. You can't really see it at this scale, but if you were to blow it up, I think you can see the edges of that tile, and then the, or maybe not, but it's a 2-piece Spanish tile that comes down, overhangs the edge. And then you can see on the right and left-hand sides, there's a detail where that tile wraps around the edges. And again, that's where we got this idea from several of these around town, and that's how that would look. If you back out of this just a little bit, you can see, well, just a little bit. Halfway in between where it was. So we altered the railing here. I think it was Mr. Sweeney's suggestion that typically on a rail like this, it would end short of the deck and it would have sort of a bottom rail. So that's what we've got now everywhere, including on the stair rails. We had a comment about rather than having the stair go straight to the back, that we do a switchback on it and have it face towards the front so that it was more functional for people to walk in, walk under that deck, and then walk straight up the stairs. And when we looked at this, it's just much more visually interesting too. And we're really happy with how that came out. We wanted to hold it back from the edge of the building a little bit so that it's like its own element there. And anyway, that's how this works. So it comes up to a landing, switches back, and goes up to that top deck. Why don't we back all the way out of the elevation so you can see all 4 of them? So you can see we've got a drainage pipe coming down. It's just going to punch through the edge of the parapet. It was really hard to model this. So what we've got, our intention here is to have like a 6-inch, one of those 6-inch terracotta round tubes that comes through the wall, and then we'll have a scupper on top of this copper downspout. We're planning to use a round downspout, and there's any number of these funnel scuppers that fit on top that the tile spillway drops into, and that it looks really good. And then it guarantees that if that downspout ever plugs, that the water will still drain off the roof and not back up on there. So we've got one drainage relief point on the front, and then back on the flat roof, which has the same parapet treatment in the back, we've got another one of those over on the side. We looked at doing it on both sides. I like as much drainage as possible, but it looked strange to have 2 downspouts on the elevation. We like how the one looks. We also eliminated some exterior lighting fixtures, so we just have the one in the front now, and up on top on that deck, we've just got one that does double duty between those French doors and the main door. And then what you can see, gosh, in the top left elevation, the southeast, where we're looking straight in, you can see under the deck, now that we've looped these stairs around, we enclosed it under there, and we are providing a door that allows you to go in and maintain it. You could store some things in there. None of that gets up to a height that it counts as any square footage, but one of the comments we had was don't have a big enclosed space under the stairs. So now that's an accessible space in this plan. So why don't we go back up to sheet A0.17. So we just did some 3D extractions out of our plans just to see how this thing looks. So we did the front elevation and then just sort of walking around the structure from each of the corners. And you can see on these also, we changed all of the windows to double hungs, with the exception of the 2 windows in the bedroom, which we have as casements. We're not 100% married to that, but we like the casements in that one location. And then if we can go to, let's see here, looking for the floor plan sheet, sheet A1.1. So when we blow up the upper floor, the lower floor is kind of self-explanatory. So there were some comments about the bedroom and all. And so, yeah, we moved those windows up so they had higher sills and closer to the sides of the room. We have a full height wall that the headboard or the bed would go up against. Nothing else really changed here. The windows in the bathroom, they're sort of dictated by where the fixtures are in the bathroom. And we added that window in the closet. That was there before, but we have them matched up just because we just thought it looked better on that elevation to have 2 windows, and it's nice to have some natural light in the closet and it doesn't interfere with the hanging space. And then why don't we go ahead and go down to that lower floor, if you could scroll to that. So down here, you can see what we did with the garage doors. We shrank down the reveal between the doors down to the bare minimum that we can do and still fit the track for the garage doors on there. So that provided us a lot more space on either side of the doors. So the colors and materials on this, we're going to match the house. It's a smooth troweled stucco. The windows, that's actually not our house. That's just an example of some railings. If you keep going through these photos, I'll show you which is ours. Yeah, probably I'll go to the very beginning, or go maybe to the context photos. This may be just some materials photos. Yeah, there's our house. So you can see what our front window looks like, similar to what we have on this ADU. Theirs is a little wider. I like the narrower proportions on the side windows that we're doing. And you can see it's this sort of dark blue-gray trim for the windows, and we'd match that trim and match the color of this existing house. So that's everything I got, and I can answer your questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gorin. Did we get any public comment?
Thank you, Chair Miller. If you are attending by webinar and would like to comment on this item, please raise your hand by clicking the hand icon on your GoToWebinar control panel. While we wait for hands, Jillian, did we receive any written correspondence for this item?
We did not receive any written correspondence for this item. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And there are no hands raised, so I'll hand it back to you, Chair Miller, for questions.
Okay, I'll just, I don't know if you prefer alphabetically or just down the list, but I'll pick Board Member Kalas. Do you have any questions, please?
Chair Miller, could I interrupt before you start with questions? It's fine for you to go alphabetically, but I would request that you give your comments and questions at the very end as the chair.
I agree. All right, thank you. Board Member Kalas, do you have any questions, please?
Yeah, I have a couple questions. generally speaking, I think this looks a lot better, a lot more in keeping with the style of the neighborhood and the principal residence on the property. So I'm happy to see what we're seeing here. I do have a couple questions. So in regards to the brow, can we see the elevations, the extra elevations rather than the 3D renderings, please? Okay, so on the, what's being referred to as the northeast elevation, which I do have a comment, I think that's a southeast elevation, so I would encourage you to review whether these are in fact labeled correctly. I have a question about whether you've looked at the header that will be required for that brow. I'm wondering if a tertiary kicker is going to be required for that. You're showing a fairly low profiled header because you're not reading that in the other elevation. So I guess I'm just wondering if we're going to end up with a third support member for that. And if so, I guess obviously the light would need to move position.
Could we, I think, so are you talking about the thing that it's bearing onto at the lower end of the eave? Or are you talking about at the top?
I'm talking about the header that will form the horizontal, that will be the horizontal member that's at the bottom of the rake. It's at the bottom of the brow.
The timbers that I've seen used for those and that we'd likely use are 6x6 are what I've seen for that.
Okay. So I guess I'm just saying, if you find that that can't meet the span and that you need a third kicker, please reflect that.
Okay, so in between. Okay, so like if we did need to, we could add another one in between, probably symmetrically on the double doors, I guess, would make sense.
Yeah, that's up to your decision where you'd want to place that. Obviously, it would need to be between the double pair and the single door in some location.
Okay.
The second question I have is, you're illustrating 2 doors on this elevation. Can you talk to us about what those doors are going to be made of, the materials? They're shown as flush doors. Is that your intention, or do you expect those to be some sort of other material?
They'd be a wood door, a solid wood panel door.
A solid wood panel door, so it would have stile and rails to it?
Yes. Yeah, not just a single flat plane of wood. No, it's a wood panel door that would be there.
Is that shown anywhere on the drawings on a door schedule or anything, Mr.
We
Gorman?
don't have a window and door schedule drawn up yet for this. We're just trying to get to where everybody's comfortable with this concept, and we can bring that in for final when we have cut sheets for every material we're using on here.
Okay, would you expect those to be painted or stain grade?
I would expect them to be stain grade.
Okay. And the last question that I have, because the rest I think are just comments, is on the casements that you're showing for the bedroom. They're on the opposing elevation to the one that we're looking at. Are you able to get double hungs in that location that would meet your egress requirements, or do you have another window in that bedroom that would meet your egress ability?
We are meeting egress on the back elevation, so these could be double hungs.
Okay.
And just
Those are
to be clear, we do have these elevations labeled correctly. Santa Barbara's at a 45-degree angle, but I'm looking at the site on a map, and these are accurate.
okay. Those are the only questions I had. Thank you.
Thank you. Board Member Motisha, do you have any questions, please?
No, I think he's covered everything that we requested. I don't have any questions at this time. No.
All right, thank you. Board Member Sweeney, do you have any questions, please?
Yeah, just one quick question. I'm assuming that the second story deck coming out of the unit on the top and the staircase are going to be Saltillo tile surfaced, or what do you have in mind? Can anybody hear me?
Yes.
No, okay.
Jared, do you have a quick answer? I can hear you.
Evidently, Garrett's
Looks like Jared froze up.
You froze. Well, hopefully you
We
can
lost him.
answer it as we go through. Okay, that's all my questions. Thank you.
It looks like we did lose.
Thank you.
Oh, there he is.
I'm here. Is it working?
Yeah.
Yeah, better.
It says it's been
can hear you.
reestablished.
Okay.
Great. The deck would be tile and the risers would also be tile. There's a really nice detail on the existing residence and we want to match that.
Okay, thank you. Board Member Klein, do you have any questions, please?
Yes. Are you doing any stormwater mitigation measures? Has that been decided yet?
The plan is just to use permeable pavers for our driveway, and we disconnect the downspouts. This will be a tier 2 project. It should be because we're using all that permeable material.
Right. Do you have a spec for the permeable pavers yet?
We haven't picked them out, but we picked something that's as close to a traditional cobble as we can.
And then my other question is, previously, I believe you had a vine that you were planning to grow over the garage. Is that still the plan?
No, it's not. Initially, the idea was to have that trellis element, have a vine grow on it, but we nixed the trellis element, so we're no longer planning that.
Great. Okay. Thank you. Those are my only questions.
All right, thank you. Board Member Ziegler, do you have any questions, please?
Yeah, I have a question. I created a question. You've mentioned that the window frames on the front are going to be blue-gray. Does that mean your railings will match that color, or will they be different colors?
I think the railings are just going to be matte black. We're not going to paint the railings to match that trim.
Okay, so what else will match that trim? Any other windows?
Just the window dividers and the trim around the windows, similar to what's on the main house. The wood that's holding up the brow is going to be stained wood. The front door is going to be a stained wood front door. The garage doors, you can see that we turned those into simple horizontal members, and those would be stained wood doors. So just
Okay,
additional set of colors for this.
thank you.
All right, thank you. I have no questions at this time, so I'll move on to comments. Board Member Kolas, do you have any comments, please?
Yes, I'd like to see the doors accurately reflected on the elevations as stile and rail doors. Like to see a detail for the leader head that will be at the top of the downspout. I'm a bit ambivalent about the scallops at the garage doors. I think those could frankly just be square. I think there's enough happening with the parapet where it could be successful with just a simple square opening or rectilinear opening for the garage doors. They look like they're sectional doors, so I would be interested in knowing or seeing a specification for those next time. The window above the garage, I would prefer to see a 1/3, 2/3 relationship to the double hung portions of that. And I would prefer to see double hung windows in the bedroom up above, since that's possible. That's it. My only comments.
All right, thank you. Board Member Motisha, do you have any comments, please?
No, I think I don't have any comments. I think he's done everything we've asked him to. Board Member Colossus has mentioned, the window above looks, above the front, the garage doors could be a 1/3, 2/3, which would improve the massing look of that elevation. Other than that, no other comment, or no other comments.
Oh, okay, thank you. Board Member Sweeney, do you have any comments, please?
Yeah, just a couple. I think this is where it needs to be. This now looks like an addition to this house that has always been there. So it's doing what it needs to do. This is probably a good example of an ADU that should have never come to us. If we had a city architect that was doing the ministerial review of these things, this could have been solved at that level and never would have had to come to this board. But unfortunately, we don't have a city architect. So because of that, a lot of these are going to have to travel to us. But this is where a lot of these things, including the comments by Ms. Kloss, could be addressed and not in front of a full 7-member board. So I think all the comments are appropriate. I'm not overly hung up on anything, even the front window. The window on the garage door elevation. One thing the applicant might want to think about, because the way this is exposed, I have a similar window in my home. It's exposed in the same direction the way our storms come in. And I set that, I made the wall on that elevation 6 to 8 inches deep. And I set the window back in so it's punched back in. And that has really helped prevent that window from taking a beating when the storms come in, because the rain's coming in from that area. Most of our storms come in from that side. So you might want to think about that, and that would allow you maybe to put some built-in bookcases on that wall. But short of that, I think it's perfectly fine, and I'm ready to the project design approval.
Thank you. Board Member Ziegler, do you have any comments?
No, I guess I don't. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Well, my only comment is I kind of agree with Mr. Sweeney. I think you've come a long way. I think it's kind of charming. The front window, I don't have any problem with it. That's kind of what they did in the 20s. It could have a cloth canopy on it if you wanted to do something like that, add a little charm to it. But I think I like it. I think you've captured the essence of the kind of the funny faux 20s Spanish that the original house has. So those would probably be my only comments. So I would support this as well. With that being said, would someone like to entertain a motion, please?
Mr. Chair, I'll move for project design approval with the following comments.
Thank you.
Let's do the compatibility documents first, Mr. Bolton, please. So this project will have consistency in its appearance with the general neighborhood along Coda Street. It's generally compatible with the neighborhood in terms of its size, bulk, and scale. The quality of architecture and materials are certainly acceptable. There are no major trees being removed as a result of this project. That the general health, safety, and welfare is under the purview of this board is appropriate. That the applicant has followed good neighbor guidelines and the project doesn't disturb any major public views. And we would like the following added comments when the applicant does return to the consent calendar for final, that the detailing and flashing of the 2-piece ceramic tile eyebrow be included in the drawings, that consideration be given to perhaps rethinking the entablature curves at the garage, that the garage door style catalog cuts be provided, as well as the night sky compliant light light fixtures attached to the house, as well as samples or colors of paving material and the railing and any intrusion it's to match on the main.
Vice Chair Sweeney, cut out.
And that the applicant consider double hung windows where the casement windows show at the bathroom and the walk-in closet. Did I cover everything you wanted?
I lost. Barbara, did that everything come through? Because he kind of went out of.
Yeah. You cut out a little bit there towards the end, Vice Chair Sweeney. I just want to make sure we get that, the last 5 seconds of your motion.
Okay. I think I added in there, consider putting in casement windows, excuse me, not casement, double hung windows where the casement windows show in the bathroom and the walk-in closet.
Fred, it was the part right before that we lost.
Oh, wow, I don't remember what that was. I think that had to do with the tile material or decking material and staircase material samples and colors that match the actual paint colors that'll match the existing primary residence.
Thank you.
Mr. Sweeney, would you feel comfortable to have Ms. Finnessy, I believe that's go through the motion so we got everything covered, or are you happy with that?
She can read it back just to make sure, that's fine.
So what I have is project design approval and return to consent for final with comments with the neighborhood compatibility with Coda Street, detailing and flashing of the eyebrow, rethinking the curves of the garage door and be provided in night sky, samples and colors of pavement materials and railings, colors that match the existing primary residence. Applicant considered double hung windows where the casement windows at the bathroom and walk-in closet are currently at.
Thank you.
Thank you. Miss Fennessy, one correction. Where I had us on the wrong street. It's Gutierrez, not Coda, sorry.
Thank you,
Okay.
I've made that correction.
Thank you.
May I have a second, please?
I'll second.
Thank you. May I have a roll call?
Thank you. I will now start the roll call vote. Vice Chair Sweeney,
Yes.
Board Member Colas,
Yes.
Board Member Klein,
Yes.
Board Member Motisha,
Yes.
Board Member Ziegler,
Yes.
and Chair Miller.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes.
And we got continued to final and consent, is that correct?
Right.
Great.
Yes.
Thanks a lot. Appreciate your input.
Okay, there's a 10-day appeal process for this project. Okay, moving on to item number 2. Let's see, are we on time? Let's see, it's 4 o'clock. So, Ms. Burkhart, can we start with this one? We're 15 minutes
Yes.
ahead.
Yes, that's fine. We are able to start 15 minutes before the agendized time. So we're there right on the dot.
Okay, all right, great, thank you. All right, item number 2, 691 North Hope Avenue, continued item, project design approval is requested. Proposal for 6 new single unit residents on a 2-acre lot that recently received approval for subdivided and annexed into the city of Santa Barbara. Project includes demolition of 1 existing single unit residence and construction of a new public road, sidewalk, parkway, and other infrastructure improvements. Accessory dwelling units are proposed for lot 1 and 6. Project design approval is requested. Project requires neighborhood preservation findings. The project was last reviewed on November 23rd, 2020. Do we have minutes from the previous meeting? Mr. Sweeney, if you could be so kind.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. The following motion was made, was to continue the project indefinitely with the following comments. Number one, keeping the 6 homes in the development consistent with the design is acceptable, but the design needs further study. 2, the neighborhood is defined as Hope Avenue, Connie Way, and Pim Place. The neighborhood consists of pitched roofs and smaller ranch-style homes. The FAR shall be brought down to the 85% guideline and provide more space between the proposed homes. 4, provide a more developed landscape plan with more park-like plantings that are drought tolerant. 5, show any lighting. 6, consider hiding the proposed solar panels. 7, show the bioswale and water retention methods. 8, provide more information in our understanding of any potential privacy issues between adjacent neighbors. 9, applicants shall lower the building height to be under 25 feet. That was made in a motion by Farrell, seconded by Ziegler with a 6-0 vote. James was absent. Motion carried.
Thank you. I have a question for Ms. Burkhart. Do board member Colossus and Klein need to abstain, or do they required to see the previous video to make comments here?
Yes, they would be required to have watched the previous video and have reviewed the plans and the minutes, which I believe they both did. Board members Colossus and Klein, could you just confirm for us?
Yes, I'll confirm.
Yes, I reviewed all 3.
Great.
All right, great, thank you. So do we have a representative from the project to go through the minutes?
Chair Miller, if I could just make a couple of introductory comments as the case planner for the project.
Sure.
Just to remind you that this project, the subdivision went to City Council for zoning map amendment and general plan amendment, and Planning Commission for the tentative map and the street frontage modification. And all of that was contingent upon approval by LAFCO, Local Agency Formation Commission. And wanted to let you know that back just a few weeks ago, May 6th, they did approve unanimously the annexation of this property into the city. So now the next step would be, as they're requesting today, project design approval for the development of each of the lots today. So that's the update on that, and I am here available if any questions arise later on in the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have a representative for this project?
Hi, this is Tony Tomasello with RRM Design Group. I'm a project planner for the project. I'm also joined by a couple others from our architecture team, and they're critical to our presentation today. I was wondering if we can elevate them to panelists. I'm not sure if they have been yet.
Sure, I can do that. Could you give me the names of the team members?
Okay, we've got Deddy Pikert, who looks like he's been elevated. Jolie Wah, Gordon Brewer, and Scott Nyman, our landscape architect.
All right, they've all been elevated to panelists.
Thank you so much.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. We're really excited to be here today to present the project for design approval. As you've probably seen, if you've reviewed the plans, they consist of a very, very complete set of plans, including everything that is required for design approval. Overall, there's about 69 sheets of plans. And in the interest of time, we're going to try and move through some of these very quickly and light upon the key plans that will be responsive to the comments that we had at our last hearing. So I want to just underscore one important fact, and that is that the project is being developed by the owners of the property who live in the area. As a matter of fact, Jervis Yao lives just around the corner and is going to be developing one of the homes for his own family, which is the home that we've designed for lot 1. His parents are also going to acquire one of these homes when it's completed. It's being designed for them. And then I myself am also partnering with the Yao family and looking forward to the possibility of acquiring one of the homes for myself. So out of the 6 homes, 3 of them are going to be occupied by the representatives of the development team here today. I think that kind of makes it a unique situation. Only 3 of the homes are being marketed, to the general market. I want to say something I think that's important too. We, as you probably all are aware, we have a housing crisis here in California. We're probably 1.5 to 2 million housing units short of what California needs to provide housing to its citizens. And the state has undertaken to create a number of laws to incentivize housing development, to make it easier to get projects approved, et cetera. This project is, of course, subject to many of those laws as well. But in this case, we comply with all the development standards and zoning standards of the city of Santa Barbara. I think that's important to know. These are the objective standards that any project is held to, and hopefully we can stick to reviewing this from the perspective of those objective requirements. I want to say something about the overall design and where we have come from our previous meeting. I think we got some really good input that basically resulted in kind of a transformation of the overall project design and of the individual homes. We moved away from the purely sort of contemporary style to more of a kind of ranch, I would call it a warm ranch contemporary. We wanted to stick with the contemporary theme overall that's reflected in all of the homes. There's this kind of consistent contemporary quality, but really very much softened by the inclusion of sloped roofs and warm natural finishes and colors. We're using siding, natural stone. And so you'll see that from some of the suggestions that we had at the previous meeting, we have really been responsive to those suggestions, and you'll see as we walk through the individual homes how that plays out. I think another really important fact here is that we have reduced the size of the homes by about 10%. So all of them, in terms of their floor area, is below below about 90% of the allowable 100% FAR. So they're in the 87 to 89% range. So that's a pretty significant reduction that I think goes a long way towards addressing the question of the size of the homes. And then another request I think we had in the minutes was that you would like to see the houses be around 20 or 25 feet or less. And for the most part, they are around 25 feet at the highest point. And that's typically the result of some of the sloped roofs and just the eave lines at the highest point of those sloped roofs. And that'll be demonstrated as we continue on through. So just overall, as I said, we're really excited. We want to move forward. We want to build these homes for the Yao family and possibly for myself as well, and facilitate the need for more housing in Santa Barbara, even though these are individual single-family homes. So from here, I'd like to invite Tony Tomasello to talk about some of the specifics and the kind of overview of the project and its context. Go ahead, Tony.
Thank you, Debbie. I think before I get started, I wanted to take this opportunity to ask Chair Miller, would it be possible, given that we have 6 residences to go through, if we could potentially have some more time to work through our presentation? We've done a lot to add some detail as well as landscape plans for each of the lots. So I think it would be beneficial for us to have some time to go through all of that.
Well, just go, how much time do you think you need? Go ahead and.
We can work through it and we'll try to go as fast as we can.
Okay.
And
All right.
we'll, if we, skip over some plans fairly quickly, you can always request that we go back to any of those plans if you want to review them in more detail.
Absolutely. So I know Kathy had given a brief recap of where we are in the process. Just to reiterate, this project did receive Planning Commission and City Council approval of the tentative subdivision map. We're back here now at with your board seeking PDA today. In addition, we also received approval from LAFCO, the Local Area Formation Commission, to annex into the city. So that has been completed as well. Also, as Debbie mentioned, if we can dive in and maybe zoom in on the FAR calculations in the lower right-hand corner. So as Debbie mentioned, we did do a lot of work. I know that there were numerous concerns about the size and massing of the previous homes. As we've dove into this, we've really taken a hard look at our numbers and the size of homes and pared it back as much as feasible. Previously, we were pushing the 100% FAR threshold. And in all cases, we've been able to pull that back to below 90% of the allowable FAR. And that does include garages, which is not something that you typically think of in terms of livable square footage. And so if we look at the total square footage numbers of each of these homes, really these, in terms of livable space, range between 2,600 to about 3,300 square feet. In addition, another thing I'll mention as we get started is that we did make a concerted effort to reach out to numerous neighbors. We were successful in getting some feedback from a few of them. And we were able to make some adjustments to some of our floor plans and site plans because of those meetings. I'll go next slide, please.
And just to suggest, Mr. Thomasville, I'd like you to really focus on the minutes from our previous meeting as well. So how did you, kind of clarify?
Absolutely. So I'll go next slide, please. And one more. So one of the things that was mentioned previously at the hearing was the idea of there were some concerns about potential neighborhood compatibility. And typically when we think of that, we want to look at, what's reasonably walkable in your neighborhood. And so what we did is we took a 1,200 foot radius around the proposed project site, which equates to about a 5-minute walk, so in relatively close proximity. And we took an inventory of essentially all of the 2-story homes and those that exceed 85% of the FAR. And what we found was that there are a number of both within that sort of neighborhood radius. And so you see the pink stars represent those homes that are over or that are 2 stories or more. And then those with the blue circles represent those residences that are over 85% of the FAR. And in a number of cases, there's some that are over 100% as well. Next slide. These are some photos for reference. We can come back to those if needed. Next slide. This is the tentative map again. Nothing to note here other than this was approved, and particularly in that process, the detailed grading and drainage issues in this neighborhood were pretty thoroughly vetted by both engineering staff and the Planning Commission. Next slide. This is a a exhibit which shows essentially all of the lots next to each other, as well as a conceptual landscape plan, which our landscape architect can get into a bit further. Next slide. These are exhibits. There were a couple of comments about the adjacencies to neighboring residences. There in the middle, you can see a section through the proposed lot 5 and the residence behind it. You can see that there's a large setback of the proposed residence, which is on the right from the property line, as well as the comparative heights of the proposed residence to the existing residence to the south on Conway Way. And then similarly down in the lower section, there was a comment about the adjacencies of the proposed residences themselves. And so we took a couple of samples so you can see what that looks like. Because again, there's those grade changes as you go from lot to lot. You can see that there's sort of offset. We took a close look at privacy issues between the lots themselves. Next slide. And then just zooming into that top image, I believe we shared this previously, but I think it's a good bird's eye view, perspective view of the development within the context of the neighborhood. And again, just, you know, in a lot of cases, you can see the precedence for two-story homes in close proximity to the site. And, you know, we really believe that these homes are compatible, and there's strong precedence for the size and massing of the homes that we're proposing in the immediate vicinity. Next slide. And with that, I'll turn it over to Jolie Wah, a colleague, who will be walking you through the much more of the design details of the revisions we've made. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. I appreciate that. Hello, members of the board. I do apologize. I am going to leave my camera off because it tends to break up my ability to be heard properly. So I hope you're okay with that. Yes, hi. I would like to talk about the character and style design of our new neighborhood. As you can see here on our elevation here, this is a street elevation going along the project. And the character of the building, as Detti had mentioned, is a contemporary ranch of sorts. We wanted to maintain the contemporary character of the project, but we listened to the board and we listened to the neighbors' comments, wanting to seek more neighborhood compatibility. And we thought that this would do this by creating a warm contemporary ranch style using natural materials such as the Santa Barbara sandstone, which we've used at the bases and on many of the buildings, and retaining walls that would tie back to the use of some native materials. We've also used natural toned stucco with a smooth Santa Barbara finish. We also have the addition of painted wood siding and sloped roofs to tie in more with the surrounding ranch style homes. And we also worked closely with the landscape design to soften the homes and create a complementary relationship between both the indoor and outdoor. This relationship will actually be presented and described further by our landscape architect, Scott Nyman, a little later in this presentation. You did want to note, so you can see those materials down below. Also, some of the roof materials that we are looking at are a standing seam metal roof painted in neutral tones, or in other times in a terracotta tone to tie back again to the neighborhood. And then we also have complementary contemporary details such as metal railings and windows and glass, metal windows and glass doors. So if we could go on to the next slide, I'd like to jump right in to our project. This is the first home on lot 1. This home is actually the personal home of the owner of the project, Jervis Yao. We just wanted to note that the size of this home has been reduced, the FAR from about 91% down to 88%. As you can see in this perspective, that the original flat roof design has been revised to include sloped roofs, and there's the addition as Santa Barbara stone on the front facade, as well as the addition of painted wood siding to warm and soften it. And we wanted to note that this home is actually predominantly a single-story home. There's a 2-story mass to the east, and then those upper windows with the 2-story are actually a stairwell that ascends up to the 2nd floor, and those windows allow views to the mountains to the north. We also wanted to note that there is a small area that has a flat roof, which is actually providing a parapet area for us to hide the solar panels for this home. If we can please go to the next slide. In this site plan, I just wanted to note that the shaded portion that you see here on the floor plan is indicating the 2nd-story areas on this home. So that long element at the top is the stairwell that ascends, and then there is an open deck looking out to the views to the north, and then the other shaded portion are the children's bedrooms. Next slide, please. This is an indication of the landscape plan that has been designed for this home. As I said, there are a number of outdoor rooms and a strong indoor-outdoor relationship, as I said, which will be further described when we reach the landscape portion of our presentation. Next slide, please. And this is the ground floor plan for the home. The home itself consists of a large central great room, and then a master suite on the ground floor and a small den, a detached garage. And then if you'll go up to the 2nd floor plan, next slide, please. You'll see there is 3 children's bedrooms, a deck looking to the north at the mountain views. And this other area is the great room, is about 1.5 stories, has a vaulted ceiling. You will note that there is an east-west orientation to this building that we have maintained, actually tried to maintain in a number of the buildings in our project, a number of the residences, to try and enable us to give us as much southern exposure, light and air to the homes, as well as create as much proximity as possible to give them a nice backyard and distance from the neighbors to the south. Next slide, please. These are the elevations for the home. You were able to pretty much see them in the perspective, and I did describe many of the elements that we were talking about. I did want to note that the overall height of the home is 25 feet 6 inches, and that is to the very tip of that sloped area of the roof. So essentially the very, very top of the eaves. So the home is all pretty much 25 feet and below. Again, you can see the different materials. Next slide, please. Oh, hello. Next slide, please.
I can hear you. You're doing good.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, I'm not seeing a slide. Sorry, it's not changing in my screen. But to go on, the next elevation is, yeah, you can go ahead and finish it, Daddy. I apologize. Yeah, it's basically just the elevate. It was continuation of the elevations. Go ahead.
And then here are some sections that again illustrate the height, et cetera. Next slide. And the roof plan. Again, you'll see some flat roof areas that will lend themselves to some solar panel installation that can be hidden, but the metal roofs showing they're sloped. So that completes lot 1. Let's go on to lot 2 with Gordon going through the slides.
Thank you. Lots 2 and 3 are in the kind of the transition zone where they're both topologically and I guess geographically, and this is where the lot takes a steep dive. So we thought it was appropriate to stay to a single story in those locations, such that I think you might remember on the section, the lot 3, which is the one to the right of this lot 2 house, the roof of the single story is almost level with the roof of the 2-story portions of lot 4. You can see we warmed this up a little bit. These are single story houses, very low key. They have nice warm wood trellises. It's a warm plinth of the Santa Barbara sandstone. And like a pattern on Connie Way, the ranch homes on Connie Way, there is at least one flat roofed, I'd call it almost a hacienda version of a ranch house with flat roofs and parapets. So we're kind of warmed that thought up with our contemporary ranch or contemporary hacienda, if you like, for these 2 houses. Next slide. Floor plans, and these have the typical ranch house RT with, they're not block or 4 square houses. They have rectangular elements and wings, and the great room concept is composed mostly of a simple rectangle. And characteristic of a lot of ranch style houses, you can see through the house from when you enter the front door. You can see out the other side of the house, which I think is a nice characteristic of those houses. It really helps you connect the indoors and the outdoors. In this case, we have beautiful mountain views to the north, and we have outdoor rooms, wonderful outdoor rooms on the southern exposure. Next slide. And our landscape architect will be talking more about how he created those nice outdoor rooms here. We should note that on the south side, there's a 10-foot drainage easement that we have used to create a landscape buffer, a green screen, if you will, from our side, and a green screen from the other side to, so we don't get into problems with views. And the houses are all set back generously from the south side for everybody's benefit and enjoyment. Next slide. Again, there's just a detail of the floor plan. You can see the simple rectangular shape for the great room, and you can see through the house from the front door. And we have a nice forecourt that gives you a chance to exploit the mountain views. Next slide. The elevations, again, you saw the perspective, so this just is a little more straight on view. You can see the relative heights of the grounding elements of the sandstone walls, the subtle, gentle, low-key play of the varying roof heights and the parapets that are going to be able to screen solar panels, a little warm wood on the trellis. And the height to the top parapet here is about 17 feet, a little over 17 feet. So they're very low-key and make a transition between the partial 2-story houses to the right and left of them. Next slide. Again, the other 2 elevations, we try to shade the windows as much as possible for energy and enjoyment. And also it creates a nice shadow play on the stucco masses with our shading devices here. I think characteristic of any house in the southwest that might have a lot of stucco mass and some flat roofs. Next slide. This roof plan showing our area available for solar collection. Next slide. Sections, you can see the parapet there again to screen our solar collectors. Next slide. This is a perspective of the neighboring lot 3. You can see how the slope is. It gets pretty steep right there. And on Connie Way, there are several instances of like a 4-foot retaining wall with a 4 or 5-foot fence on top of it. And we are going to try and use natural stone retaining walls and settle and terrace them so we don't have really big differences in height at one big wall. We took a lot of care in trying to work that out. This again, we had a little more warmth to differentiate it from the other house. The massing is subtly a little different, although the floor plans are very similar. We warmed this garage up in this case with the stone. We felt that was a nice gesture where we need the stone for the retaining wall. So this is kind of almost like an outcropping buttressing the difference in height. Next slide. Again, the floor plan is very similar to lot 2, so we don't need to go to the floor plan again. Next slide. The same here, the floor plan is very typical ranch style with the rectangular great room and the open spaces both north and south. Next slide. Yeah, there's the floor plan again. Next slide. Elevations, just again illustrating, you can see if they're straight on, you can see the relative heights of the grounding sandstone elements and the way they tie into the little outcropping here of the garage. You can see the shadow play that we have on the plain mass of the stucco walls and the shading devices. Next slide. And you can see the same thing with the shadows on the south elevation with a nice warm sandstone fireplace element there on the middle there, kind of creating a little interest in that piece of the elevation. Next slide. The roof plan, again, solar collector, a lot of area for solar collectors. Next slide. And this is a section of lot 4. Next slide. Okay, this is, excuse me, that was lot 3. This is lot 4, perspective of lot 4. And this has a partial second story, and we listened to the board's comments about using the massing techniques of the mid-century ranch or mid-century modern, if you will, design style to kind of buttress and gradually transition from a single story to the second story and kind of not hide, but gently buttress the second story masses. And so I think we've accomplished that here. You can see how the massing buttresses up to the second story. So we're not, it's not like a colonial house where you can see the full second story right on. It's just much more informal, ranch style massing basically. And we have the gently sloped roofs, as we mentioned before. We added the horizontal siding and some stone to really warm this up and give it more of a ranch character. Next slide. Yeah, this lot and lot 5 have really tricky shaped lots, and to do a ranch house, so the overall footprint of the house had to become a little more square. But if we go to the next slide in the floor plan, well, the landscaping plan, we can see that. You can see the profile of the great room here is still that nice, simple ranch style shape. You walk in the front door and you can see through the house. You can see we have a really wonderful southern outdoor room, and we have a little outdoor room off the junior master suite in the front there with a nice little sitting area. Again, just exploit those really wonderful mountain views. Next slide. There you can see again the ranch style great room concept, the generous opening to the outdoor room in the south. Next slide. You can see the extent of the second story, and you can see the roofs around it that buttress it up as was commented or requested, I think, last time by the board. Thank you. Next slide. In the elevations, you can see the play of the materials again, how we've added quite a bit of more ranch style and warmer materials in terms of the siding and the motion of the gently sloped roofs, which poke up to just a few inches above the 25 feet at the ends of those shed roofed overhangs. And again, there's some stone buttressing masses to really ground and anchor the building. The addition on that north elevation of maybe a green wall, really liven it up, give it some color. Next. And just the other two elevations, again, you can see this shadow play with the shading elements, the warm colors, both in the stucco and the materials. In this case, we added a little stone to the south elevation to warm that up. Next slide. Again, you can see the roof plan and how that it's a gentle, informal buttressing massing going on there. Next slide. Sections kind of demonstrate the massing and the way that the roofs are buttressing up and supporting that second story mass. And we have a gentle parapet on there for enough to conceal our solar collectors on the flat roof portions. Next slide. This is lot 5. It has the geometry of the site has the same problems, so I kind of reverse from lot 4 in that it's a kind of a triangular shaped lot. So it makes it a little bit difficult. In this case, we opted to turn the mass of the ranch style great room to facilitate its positioning on the site. But it has the same characteristics as lot 4 and the rest of our houses, in that we use this gently sloping roofs and the massing to gently and informally buttress and mass up to that second story volume. Generous amounts of sandstone to ground the house and relate it to the site, and some more ranch style materials, exposed wood and the rafters, rafter tails, high some kind of windows over here. Next slide. Yeah, you can see the challenges of the site again. You can see how we had to crank that wing of the great room wing around to stay within the footprint of that site. Next slide. Landscape plan, again, showing our outdoor rooms, their generous space on the south, and the setback, generous setback from the south, the landscape buffer along that drainage easement, and a nice little and inviting porch to the north, and windows in that great room will look to north to the mountains and south to our nice outdoor room. Next slide. And that's just the definitive floor plan where you can see those elements and the way that the great room is, the typical ranch style narrow width proportions and windows on both sides of that width to connect it to the outside. Next slide. You can just see on the roof plan, again, how the second floor is situated and buttressed up by the surrounding roof planes. Next slide. And again, the elevations, you can just see the proportions of the material. Again, the heights of the sandstone walls that buttress it, the elements where we added almost like little rock outcroppings to buttress and support the massing of the higher elements. The gently sloped roofs, again, this one has a corner window, kind of a characteristic of the mid-century modern house, and some high transom glazing, the exposed wood rafters and exposed wood ceiling inside, and that gently sloped roof. Next slide. More, just the other two elevations showing, again, the slope roofing and, again, the transom windows going all the way basically to the ceiling. This trapezoidal transom here is very characteristic of mid-century modern expression there. Next slide. And there's roof plan again. Informal and, ranch style, I would say. Next slide. You can see the buttressing features here pretty clearly, the way that the sloped roofs gradually and gently lead you up to the second story massing portion. Next slide. And
Okay.
This is lot 6, so we'll give this back to Jolie.
Thank you, Gordon. I appreciate that. Hello. Yes, this is lot 6. This is the final home in our subdivision. This home actually sits on the largest lot on the property at about 13,000 square feet for the size of the lot. This is a family home with a partial second story as well. The plan has been reduced to about 3,300 square feet, and the FAR has been reduced to under 90% at 89%. If Again, the materials used on the home are reflective of the others that we've used in the rest of the project. The use of Santa Barbara sandstone on the stair tower at the front. The massing at the far right is a wood siding with nice corner windows. And again, we've added sloped roofs at the garage, at the side mass, at the stair tower, and one area in the central portion with a parapet roof to use for solar, hide the solar panels. Okay, if you can go to the next slide, please. This shows our site plan, shows the second story portion of the home being over on the west side of the house. As you can see, the home is situated, much more towards the northern side of the property, allowing for a large area at the southern part of the property for southern exposure, as well as maximizing the yard area and also providing a good deal of distance between this home and the neighbor's home. Next slide, please. This is our landscape plan, again, which Scott will elaborate on. And so I will just go on to the next slide, please. This is the floor plan for the home. Again, a family home with a central great room, 2 bedrooms down on the lower floor, and a garage, and then a stair tower to the upper floor. So we'll go to the next floor, stairway to the next floor, to the upper floor. Again, this is our second story portion of the home, just partially for part of the mass. It is 2 bedrooms with a shared bath and a master suite on the second floor with views to the north out of those corner windows and out of the windows at the front at the master bath. One of the things that I really wanted to note regarding this home is that we met with the neighbors and we really took in about the home and really took into consideration their concerns regarding the previous design had a deck out overlooking the backyard on the getting southern sun. And, but there was concern, on what kind of privacy that would provide for the neighbor over to the west over here. And so when we came back and we redesigned this project, redesigned this home, we actually relocated the deck to the east side of the property. So there is, there is no concern as far as any views, looking directly into the neighbor's yard. And also with the location of this deck on the east side of the property, we also have added an outdoor fireplace, and there's a large ledge here to try and pull the deck back closer to the home so that we're also trying to provide privacy as well to the neighbors, our new neighbors that would be over on the east side of the property line. Also taking into account, as you can see, that the windows, actually see them maybe better on the elevations. Maybe let's go on to the next slide.
So how much more presentation do you have? I kind of want to make sure we're kind of in timeline.
Chair Miller, we're just about
Mr.
we're just
Chair,
Just about finished. We just have,
Mr. Chair, this is Mr. Sweeney. We've been at this for almost 45 minutes. We need to have time to continue our work, please. Thank you.
Yes.
we just have the landscape presentation.
5 more minutes, please.
Let's just
Okay.
skip right to the landscape plan. and we
Straight
can
to the
open it
landscape
up.
plan.
So specifically, and I really request this, is that to just go down the list of our minutes from the previous meeting, as opposed to representing the whole project again. We just wanted a specific cutoff, check off of, we asked for a specific, item, and did you address that item? And just, that's all I really wanted to see.
Yes. So just to answer that, on lot 6, the home was brought down to a height at around 25 feet, so just a little tiny bit above that, but 25 feet, and it can be. And then also windows on the west side have been reduced so that they are just high windows. So there is definite consideration to the neighbors on the second story.
All right. Okay, I'm going to wrap you guys up, and so we can get back to.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, one of the comments was also to provide landscape plans, which we did not have before. So in the interest of responding to that comment, can we just take a quick walk through the landscape plans?
I'm going to say no at this moment, and I'll have our landscape architect go through it with you so you can spend your time at that time with her to present your landscape plan. How about that? Just
Sure.
for the sake of time. Thank you.
Understand.
Yeah, I know, sorry, but we'll get to it. We'll get to it. So I'd like to bring us back to Ms. Burkhart. Did we get any public comment, please?
Thank you, Chair Miller. If you are attending by webinar and would like to comment on this item, please raise your hand by clicking the hand icon on your GoToWebinar control panel. While we wait for hands, Jillian, did we receive any written correspondence for this item?
We did receive 2 items of written correspondence from Mike and Polly Mortony and Brian and Nikki Costa. That was distributed prior to the board prior to this meeting. Thank you.
All right, thank you. There is one hand raised. I would like to call on Brian Costa. I'm going to unmute you. Your mic is live. You have 2 minutes to speak whenever you're ready.
Hey, thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Brian Costa. I'm a homeowner on Connie Way. I want to follow up on the letter submitted on behalf of 27 neighbors asking the board to reject RRMs and the Yao design for 691 North Hope. Since the SFDB meeting in November, our group of neighbors that oppose this development has expanded to over 24, including neighbors from Penn Place, Rolling Brook Lane, Connie Way, and Hope Terrace. Since January, we've been in regular contact with RRM via email, but despite repeated written requests, RRM failed to send us copies of the revised plans before submitting them to the board. As a result, the current plans do not include the community's feedback. We were also disappointed to see that the latest design is largely unchanged, suggesting RRM unfortunately disregarded the neighbors' concerns provided in November and then again in January. Our core concerns were and remain the following about the proposed design. 1, the proposed home sizes, heights, and styles are incompatible with our neighborhood as defined by the SFDB in November. They are incompatible because they are all modern, twice as big, occupy almost twice as much of the FAR, and are also almost twice as tall as the existing adjacent homes. 2, the proposed design will significantly and negatively impact the privacy of the adjacent neighbors because the majority of the homes have second stories that will look into the private spaces of the adjacent neighbors. 3, the proposed design and grading will have adverse impacts on local drainage because it underestimates the rates of water flashing and the ability of the existing 30-inch culvert under 3830 Connie Way to handle stormwater runoff. 4, the proposed design will create unsafe traffic conditions for children attending the nearby elementary school because the road design allows adjacent cars to turn left and right at the same time while crossing a sidewalk frequently used by young kids going to school. These concerns are described in detail in our letter, and some of the other neighbors will also speak to them today more specifically. Mr. Chair and board members, thank you for your time and consideration.
Okay, at this time, I would like to call on Mike Martini. I'm going to unmute you. Your mic is live. You have 2 minutes to speak whenever you're ready.
Yes, okay, thank you. Good afternoon, board members. My name is Mike Martini, and my wife Polly and I live at 3808 Connie Way on the corner of Hope and Connie, adjacent to Lot 1 of the proposed development. My family's been here since the 60s, and I've owned the property for over 35 years. So I believe that makes me a good judge of the character of the neighborhood. The proposed design of the project severely impacts the privacy of the homes like mine on the north side of Connie Way. The grading elevations, as well as the proposed second-story structures, create houses with power over my property. With roof lines even at 25 feet, it creates a direct line of sight into my yard, leaving me with absolutely no privacy outside or inside for that matter, as a lot of the windows are on the north side of my house. Like my neighbors, I've worked very hard to maintain my house and property all these years, and hope to enjoy the rewards of my efforts. The loss of all privacy is unacceptable to me, not to mention the loss of our wonderful mountain views, which is also impacted by the second story of the home. Our privacy, as well as the views, are some of the most valuable assets to the property. Large two-story homes would also severely impact our property values. I don't believe that the rights of someone else to create a larger profit is more important than those of us who have invested so much in our neighborhood. I can't imagine that any of you would want a project of this size built next to your own homes. The two-story homes shouldn't be allowed. And just to comment on the presentation we just heard, they mentioned lowering the heights of the properties, homes on 5 and 6. There's no mention at all of my lot 1. That second story just takes away all my privacy. And not to mention the mountain views, which they seem to be the new homeowners. Thank you much for your consideration.
Right. Thank you. I would like to call on Nikki Costa at this time. I'm going to unmute you. Your mic is live. You have 2 minutes to speak whenever you're ready.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
That's not Nikki. This is Dan. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, very good. My name is Dan Shea. I'm living on Connie Way, and I was looking over the revised design also, and to me, it's wholly incompatible with our neighborhood. Looking at the latest proposal, these homes are much larger than our existing neighborhood. I know they drew a circle and a sign and showed the neighborhood, but our direct streets include Connie Way, Rolling Brook, North Hope Avenue, and all these homes have a square footage of approximately 1,600 square feet. These homes proposed have 3,716 square foot average. And the FAR is, in our neighborhood, is about 46.5 square feet. Percent, I'm sorry, 46.5% to 89% in the new proposal. 4 of the 6 are 2-story homes, and there are ultra-modern design. I heard a lot of warm ranch, but I don't know what pictures they were looking at, but that's not warm ranch. I've lived in ranch neighborhoods a lot, and that's they said it so many times. I don't know. But anyway, the view and the privacy, the view, both public and private, will change really our neighborhood. The street size. And also I wanted to address the street size. I was looking at the plans, and it shows a street size of 32 feet, but that's total street size. That doesn't include the sidewalk and the parkway and the curbs. I'd like to know what the street is from curb face to curb face, and is there going to be street parking on the street? Thank you for your time.
All right, thank you. There are no further hands raised. Let's see, another hand has been raised. I'm going to call on Matthew Schreibner. Your mic is live. You have 2 minutes to speak whenever you're ready.
Hi, thank you, Board. Again, my name is Matt Scribner. I live at 3830 Connie Way, which is behind the houses on lot 4 and 5. And I had hoped when this property was purchased that there would be more homes available for the generally younger families that move into our neighborhood. People are attracted to the neighborhood. Young families are attracted to the neighborhood because it's centered on Monte Vista School and Willow Glen Park. And these monster homes are not homes that are going to attract young families that are just starting out. So that's one thing, I mean, it's great you want to build houses and there is a housing shortage, but building these monster homes is not going to bring in young families that need to move into our community. Additionally, I've talked in the past about my concern about the water management. I've had floods in the 11 years that I've been in my house. I've had flooding in my backyard 3 years out of those 11 years. That's not a 100-year flooding or 25-year flooding. That's once every 3 years. And the hydrology plan that was presented over a year ago assumed much smaller houses and a much smaller FAR than what they are proposing now. And I'm paying right now FEMA flood insurance. I don't think there's any way that I'm going to be able to cancel my flood insurance with these homes going up based on the hydrology plan that was made a year ago with these large homes that they're now presenting. I feel like this whole thing is a money grab, expense of the neighborhood and at the value of the surrounding properties. There's just no other reason to justify such large, enormous homes that are so out of character from our neighborhood. We tried to work with this firm, but they act one way, or they present themselves in one way and act completely different. Everything about this is suspect. I don't trust the efficacy of the hydrology plan or the integrity of this firm, and I'm pleading with the board not to allow this to go through as presented. Thank you.
Thank you. I would like to call on Michelle Martin. I'm going to unmute you. Let's see. I'm going to send you an unmute request. Great. Your mic is live. You have 2 minutes to speak whenever you're ready.
Hi, my name's Michelle Martin. I live at 3803 Connie Way. It's the corner house, and while the designs are lovely, I agree with my neighbors that they do not blend into our existing neighborhoods at all, and the size is it surprises me that designers would choose to put such large homes in such a neighborhood. The other thing is I direct an after-school program for children who attend Monte Vista School. We walk up and back from school regularly, and this is going to increase traffic. And I guess I'm curious about what you're doing to ensure that there are some safety measures for entryways and exits, because already on Penn Place, people kind of creep out and don't look, and it's a little edgy. So if you could address those concerns, I'd appreciate it. And I guess the other thing is about the buildings. I'm once removed. I live across the street from the Martinez, and still the mountain view, if you have a 2-story property going in behind his house, that also affects the view of the people on Connie Way that are across the street from the people who the buildings will be directly behind. So it's a matter of homes blending in and child safety and size. It just, the flooding that Matt mentioned, I don't have that concern because I live at the top end, but design-wise, these questions need to be addressed. Thank you.
All right, I would like to call on Matthew McDermott. I'm going to unmute you. I'm going to send you an unmute request. Okay, your mic is live. You have 2 minutes to speak whenever you're ready.
Thank you. Yes, I represent my mother, who's quite elderly. She lives at 3836 Penn Place. That's the house I grew up in. The properties at 3836 and 3838 Penn Place are adjacent to each other and have an open concrete trench drain 4 feet wide and 3 feet deep that run along the property line. And water flows through the trench and through the culvert under Penn Place and exits near the property line at 691. So Yeah, so the water flows and exits the property line at 691 North Hope, and large quantities of sediment have been deposited at the property line of 691 Hope, creating a small hill that prevents the natural flow of water and sediment. Sediment has thus backed up to clog the culvert under Penn Place and clogged the last 30 feet of the concrete trench drain with dirt and mud 2 to 3 feet deep. In its current configuration, with each rain event, stormwater is blocked from flowing through the culvert onto the 691 Hope property, and instead flows onto Penn Place. And during large rainstorms, substantial flooding occurs on the lower section of Penn Place and on the 3836, 3838, and 3848 Penn Place properties. We have photographs that can help demonstrate this. And we believe that the owners of 691 Hope Avenue are violating the rule of reasonable use by preventing the natural flow of water onto their property. And this needs to be addressed, whether it's, if this development takes place or not, it needs to be addressed. That's all I have to say.
All right, thank you. At this time, I would like to call on Nikki Costa. I'm going to unmute you. Your mic is live. You have 2 minutes to speak whenever you're ready.
Good afternoon. My name is Nikki Costa. I'm a homeowner on Connie Way. As you've heard from our other neighbors today, our community is very concerned about the scope and size of this development. Despite multiple requests to review the plans, we only received a copy after they were submitted to the board. As a result, we do not feel that the YOWs or RRM are working with us in any meaningful way to broker an acceptable solution. The YOW's proposal will have significant negative impacts on the long-standing residents of our community. Our core concerns were and remain the following. One, the proposed home sizes, heights, and styles are incompatible with the surrounding neighborhood and are on average 2,000 square feet larger. The design and grading will significantly and negatively impact the privacy of adjacent neighbors. This design will have adverse impacts on local drainage. And then last, the design will create unsafe traffic conditions for children attending nearby Monte Vista Elementary School. It's clear that the YOWs and RRM have ignored the neighbors' concerns and have carefully cherry-picked data to make the design seem less intrusive. For example, RRM's comparison to a Connie Way property shown earlier today and on page 8 used the only two-story house along the south property line. The slant that the sale of three multi-million-dollar homes will ease the city's housing crisis further supports the narrative that anything is being said to get this project approved. As a result, we do not feel that our concerns are being taken seriously, and the community is looking to the SFDB to reject this proposal and prevent this development. Any development should be truly compatible with and add value to multiple aspects of this existing neighborhood. The SFDB has done tremendous work in other nearby and similar developments on Hope Avenue. We, the 27 neighbors living on Connie, Penn, Rolling Brook, and Hope Terrace, hope that you will do the same for 691 North Hope. Thank you for your time and your consideration.
All right, thank you. There are no hands raised, so Chair Miller, I will hand it back to you for questions.
All right, thank you very much. So Board Member Kalas, do you have any questions, please?
I do have some questions. Just as some background, I grew up in this neighborhood during my junior high and high school years, so I'm very familiar with it. Matt McDermott was a companion of mine in junior high. We used to go trick-or-treating together on Rolling Brook and Penn Place and Connie Way, so I'm very familiar with the area, although I did drive by it today to get a good sense of the exact location of the site. The questions that I have for the applicants are as follows, and I'm not seeing the applicants on the screen. Maybe it's just because I don't know if they're there. I'm assuming they are. One question that I have is what the total reduction of square footage has been across the project at large since the last time this was in front of the board. They've noted that they're below 90%, but I'd like to know how many square feet were actually removed from the whole project. Is that something that you can provide?
Yeah, I mean, I can answer that in the broadest sense that overall the floor areas were reduced 10% approximately. varying depending on the home. The actual number of square feet, I'm not sure if Tony is available, whether you have that number.
We'll need to calculate it.
So if I did a rough estimate and I said we're looking at about 18 to 20,000 square feet of development, and it's been reduced by 10%, we'd be looking at a reduction of approximately 300 square feet on average per lot. Does that sound about right?
300 or 400 square feet is about right, I think.
Okay. Have any of the plate heights been reduced since the last meeting on any of the lots?
I don't believe so. I think the target that the board gave us last time was to reduce the overall height to 25 feet or below, which, as you can see, we have done. Even with the two-story homes, only very small portions of the roofs are over 25 feet by 6 inches. And yeah, we could easily reduce that a little bit more. And again, the two-story elements really comprise, and for the most part, in the roughly 50% of the footprint of the homes, depending on which home we're talking about. And then 2 of them, of course, are single-story homes, very low key.
Okay. I'm wondering if you could run the board quickly, because we've spent a lot of time here, but if you could quickly run us through, I guess it would be all except lots 2 and 3, because I think those are the only 2 lots that are just single story. So if you could run us through the other 4 lots, through the elevations, and articulate to us which volumes on those particular parcels are 1.5 or 2 stories, but that do not have an actual 2-story use within them. In other words, it's a 2-story volume, but it's only being used on the ground floor. I'm interested in understanding what volume we're dealing with here.
Right. Again, you can see in this elevation that the area to the east is 2 stories. There's bedrooms up there. And then just to the right of that, you can see some clear story windows, and those represent a kind of vaulted ceiling in that living great room space. So the ceiling slopes up, but it doesn't go anywhere near the full 2-story height. In fact, it slopes away from the neighboring building there towards, yeah.
And then the lot number 4, I guess it would be.
Again, you can see here that a portion of the building is 2-story with it's a little hard to see all of that here. It's probably easier to see it on the footprint, but you can see that the garage and the portion of the building here is single-story. But when the way it wraps around the living room, you can see there's a substantial piece of it that's also 1-story. If you go back up to the floor plan, or I think it might be the site plan. Yeah, here you can see these are the 2-story elements. You have 3 bedrooms up there, and then the garage and the roof here, and these other portions of roof, and of course the balcony are, single-story.
So this doesn't have any used space that has a double volume, with the exception of maybe the stairwell at the center there?
Right.
Okay. And lot 5?
If you go back to the floor plan first, there you can see the 2-story is kind of centered right in the middle. Again, there's no, additional perfunctory volume spaces or anything on that second floor. All the remainder of it there is just single-story. And now you can go back to the elevation. You can see how that plays out there.
Okay. And then lot 6, please.
Same thing here. You can see that the second story element is as defined here, and then the single story elements are indicated around the perimeter of that space. And then there's that outdoor balcony that's over a portion of the living space below.
Okay, so if we look at the rendering of this particular unit, the tall window elements there on the right, those are the stairwell. Am I reading that properly?
Yeah, I believe so, yeah. But I'm not 100% sure. If we can go back to the plan, we can verify that. Right here, stairwell.
Okay. And then the last questions I have are whether transportation department has reviewed the project and or whether floods, the flood department or public works has also reviewed it.
Yeah. On that question, so yes to both. As we were going through and reviewing the tentative subdivision map and grading plans, both Public Works Engineering and Public Works Transportation Planning and Transportation Engineering all reviewed the project in detail. I'll start with the grading and drainage. So actually what's going on is along Penn Place, 3836 Penn Place, I believe is the address. There's an existing culvert on private property that is filled with sediment and debris. And so it's not allowing water to remain in the existing pipe that.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair, before Mr. Tomasillo continues his explanation, could we get Mr. Bolton to show us the site plans so we know where he's talking about? Thank you.
Actually, if we go down to the civil plan, that probably would be best. It's at the very end of the package, I believe. And go up one, please. And up one more. Okay. So as you can see, kind of right in there where the cul-de-sac is, there's a diagonal line that is a storm drain. That's an existing 30-inch storm drain that flows below the site and goes and connects to the storm drain that's on the south of the property on Connie Way. And that continues downstream and goes to a large drainage channel. What's going on is on the north side of Penn Place, on private property, there's an existing culvert that is clogged with sediment, thereby not allowing water that flows from the neighborhoods to the north to enter it. It's private property, it's in the county, and Penn Place is a private road, so there's no agreements or anything in place that the county can do to require that property owner to clean that out. So as part of this project, and this is in coordination with Public Works Engineering staff, is we're going to replace that storm drain underneath our site, clean it out all the way to where the existing culvert is, clean out that culvert, and from there, it will be the responsibility of that property owner to make sure that that remains clear. Now, in the event that they do not do that and water begins to flow over the top of Penn Place again, we are putting in a Plan B mechanism whereby we pick up the water in a storm drain at the property line. So that's there in the low point of the site, in the, I'll call it the top left corner. Number 12 is pointing to it there. So that water can get back in that pipe and remain underground. And then there's a series of large storm drains that will essentially reroute through the site and connect to a new storm drain along that easement area on the south side of the property. And then regarding the transportation planning, transportation planning and transportation engineering. They did detailed analyses independent of our firm to confirm whether there was any potential safety impacts along Hope, and they determined that there are not. And that's based on, the few number of trips that are generated from 6 single-family homes, as well as the existing improvements that are along Hope. There will be a stop sign. We'll obviously need to conform to the visibility requirements as you approach Hope Avenue. And there's also a significant dedication. So where Penn Place currently comes out onto Hope Avenue, the property will essentially, or our project will essentially be set back, I believe it's 7 feet dedication from where the current property line is. And that will be improved with a crosswalk and the stop sign and improved visibility. So you really won't have pulling out and poking out into the Hope Avenue sidewalk and travel way. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Those are all the questions I have at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Board Member Motisha, do you have any questions, please? Where is he? He's been taken away. Is he?
He's here. I'm sending him an unmute request and a webcam request. See
Okay.
if we can get him back online.
So for sake of time, oh, there he is. I hear a voice.
Sorry, I'm always forget. No, I don't have any questions at this time. I could say a lot, asked a lot of questions.
Okay.
I can't right now. I'll wait till my comments. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Board Member Sweeney, do you have any questions, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, I have several questions, and this is going to take some time. I want to start with Kathleen, Ms. Kennedy, our staff person. So I'd like some procedural questions answered to, if she's still here.
Yes, I am.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Kennedy. Procedural question. This project, this land has gone before the Planning Commission, I believe you told us that, and the City Council. So is it at this moment, irregardless of who owns this property is now in the City of Santa Barbara. Am I correct?
That's correct, yes.
Okay, so regardless of who owns this property is now in the City of Santa Barbara. At the Planning Commission, that was a public hearing. Did the Public Works Department and the traffic staff present a report at that hearing?
At the Planning Commission hearing, and I believe there were 2 hearings related to this project. The drainage and traffic issues were addressed at both times. We had Public Works engineering staff there, I believe, and then we conveyed information from the Transportation Planning Division to the Planning Commission. So these issues of traffic, safety, drainage were discussed a number of times.
Okay, and has that information been given to this board for our review?
I'm not sure I understand what you mean. We have a number of conditions of approval related to drainage that the project was.
I'm asking, has those reports been made aware to us and available to us for our review in and above the final conditions set by the Planning Commission?
No, I would say that the Planning Commission staff reports are available, but we don't provide those to the board members. And some information was conveyed verbally at those hearings.
Okay.
So there are no reports to follow.
But you haven't made our board aware that those are available to us, correct?
I think Commissioners are aware that planning commission staff reports are available if you need to go
No,
back and look at those.
yes.
And
That doesn't happen. Okay, thank you. You've answered my question. Let's see. With regards to approving this project, are we going to be required to hear and approve as separate items each parcel when it comes to project design and final approval, or are we doing this as one big single package?
are you asking me that question? I'm sorry.
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Yes, so this, the applicant decided to bring this forward as one project. They did consider selling the lots and having each lot come in separately, but they've decided to bring this as one project, so it would be project design approval for the whole entire project.
Okay, and then I've got another series of questions with regards to the general overview. I know that in some other cases, we've looked at projects where there has been a dedicated view shed corridor across a property. Does any of this property or these sites have any dedicated public view sheds or private view sheds?
No, they do not.
Okay. And the current zoning for this site, the building height goes up to 30 feet. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And there is no substantial ordinance in play with the city of Santa Barbara that prevents an applicant from building a second floor, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And let's see. There's some reference to an hydrology report that was created, I think, by the applicant in 2019. There's some stipulation that might not be up to date. Is that how one looks at that, or is that report need to be updated? Do we know?
So that report was up to date at the time this project was brought to the Planning Commission, and it was approved by the Planning Commission in 2019. One of the conditions of approval for this project is that when each new lot is developed, each new lot must comply with the Tier 3 SWIMP requirements for each lot. So when this project is moving forward, they would need to have a separate report submitted for each lot.
Okay, thank you. And then one final procedural question. If this board chooses to approve, I'll give project design approval as being requested for this application, which is all 6 houses or all 6 properties. Any appeal goes directly to the city council. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. Let me go now to the project itself. Mr. Bolton, can we come back and show the comments that we made in our last official review and approval? Thank you. So I want to start a couple of questions that I'm not sure I heard specific answers to. And one in specifically is I did see some site sections, a couple of site sections in the documents presented today, but I didn't see any specific information that would help me understand the privacy issues between the adjacent neighbors. Was there any effort to indicate where windows and outdoor areas on the adjacent neighbors are located in relationship to the windows and openings of these proposed houses? Do we have that? Do we have such a document?
No, we do not.
Okay. The other question we had, I think it was explained a few minutes ago, but maybe there's some other things missing, or maybe they're not required. Were bioswales and water retention areas required under your approach to, I assume, Tier 3?
I'm sorry, Tony, can you respond to that? I'm not 100% sure.
Sorry, Vice Chair Sweeney, what was the question?
One of the questions, comments that we had in our last review is there was a comment saying or requesting that you show bioswales and water retention methods. I know a few minutes ago you explained the 30-inch culvert and so forth, but are there any other on-land landscape retention methods or water handling methods on each lot?
There are in the civil plans. There's information on that. On the landscape plans, which we didn't have a time to go through, but I'm sure our landscape architect would be happy to. We also show locations of bio retention areas and proposed landscaping within those.
Okay, well, given the fact we weren't able to see the whole presentation, maybe now is the time you could share specifically a response to that question number 7 that we had last time. That would be helpful. Thank you.
Okay. Scott, I'll turn it over to you.
All right, thank you, Tony. Greetings to the board. Yeah, let's take a look at that back area, the bioswale and water retention basin. So that is, that's a basin. It was designed by our civil engineer as far as the hydrology and the water movement's concerned. But from a landscape perspective, we saw it as an opportunity to make a pretty exciting feature for the homes. It's not always the case that we get to have a dedicated space in the back of the property like that, where we could just provide ample planting and trees for screening. So we really use that space to create a garden-like atmosphere, lots of native plants and vegetation that do well with very little water or when they're inundated, which is kind of the specific condition that we have for those basins, right? They've either got a ton of water or...
Mr. Neiman, can you get Mr. Bolton to zero in on where is that? Where are you talking about specifically?
Oh, I'm sorry. It's on the southern side of the property, yeah. So below the pools, you can see there's a tree row down there.
That appears to be palm trees?
Exactly. So,
that's where it's located?
Correct. So
and for the sake of, I understand that. I understand what these are, but for the sake of the public that's watching this, do you have a little section through there or a standard detail of what a bioswale is and what it does?
Great question. I can describe it and use my hands.
Okay, thank you.
So,
that's fine.
Yeah, it's just a slightly depressed area where water will collect to and then be channelized. So it doesn't run off into the adjacent property. It actually gets caught and then carried. And one of the goals that we have is not only just moving the water to where it needs to be, so getting it to that drain inlet, but also slowing it down, introducing grasses, shrubs, reeds, things like that, that can intercept the water, slow it down to boulders, and allow it to percolate a little bit to ease some of the pressure on the stormwater system. So that's the goal of doing a vegetated swale as opposed to just concrete or something like that. And then we get the bonus of being able to introduce trees and other things that'll be able to grow up and provide some screening and privacy.
And do you have the nature of that? Is that on every single one of the lots or just certain ones?
Correct. It goes the entire stretch of the properties from lot 1 all the way down to lot 6.
Okay, great. I think that's really helpful for the public to understand. I understand when you tell us what you're doing, but not everyone clearly gets it. And that's some of the concerns that's been expressed by the public. Okay, can we go back to to that list again, Mr. Bolton? Thank you. We haven't gotten into lighting yet. I think we can deal with that maybe a little later. The landscape plan is now presented. I'll assume Ms. Klein may have more questions about that. With regards to the FAR, as I read your statistics, none of these projects is 85% or lower now. They are still up at 89 or 90%. Lot number 1 and 6, you indicated it as an ADU on it, correct? Am I correct? I got that right?
That's correct. It's a potential ADU.
Okay.
that those will be moving forward, but in the event that they do, obviously we will.
And as I understand it, under the state rules, the square footage of those ADUs cannot be counted in the calculation of the FAR, correct?
I defer to Kathy, but I believe that yes, that is correct.
Okay, and I'm going to reserve that for comment. I do know that there is a bill at the Senate right now, at the legislature, Senate Bill number 9, that would allow ADUs on every lot, everywhere in any city or county, irregardless of what's on there already. But that's another subject. Okay, let me go then to some other other questions. There was some discussion on lot number 6 about much conversation with a neighbor. I think I heard it was the westerly neighbor, but perhaps not the southerly neighbor. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. It was the westerly neighbor who agreed to meet with us. We did meet with him and describe the project and listen to his concerns. We created a couple of exhibits to illustrate the impacts that he was concerned about. And the one critical thing that we did was take a deck that came off of the master bedroom on the 2nd floor and swing it around to the east side over the living space in order to avoid any impact on his privacy.
Okay. And then one of the other things with regards to definition of neighborhood, and Ms. Burkhart or Ms. Kennedy maybe will answer this question. Right now, under the current rules, that's still very much a subjective decision of this board. There is, as I understand it, no objective definition of neighborhood unless it's utilized in terms of research on FARs. And I've had this conversation with Ms. Brooke and with Ms. Saustringer. Am I correct that that definition of neighborhood is still a subjective decision this board makes?
That's correct, Vice Chair.
Okay, thank you. Let's see. I think those are my general. One last question, and again to Ms. Burkhart or to Ms. Kennedy. If this board chooses, we're still able to require, before we give preliminary design approval to any project, we still could require story poles for one or more of these sites, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, and it's up to our decision as to whether it's a story pole criteria of A, B, or C, as I recall in our guidelines, correct?
I believe so. I would have to follow up with you.
Okay.
I can check that.
Okay. I think for the moment, those are my questions, and I'll reserve the rest for my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sweeney. I just want to put out there, do we need to take a 5-minute break?
That might be good.
Okay, I know we're running late, but I want to take a 5-minute break. So let's get back here at 5:25. go for questions to Board Member Klein. Do you have questions, please?
Yes, I would like to talk to the landscape architect and just have him go through a couple things for clarification.
All right, hello.
Hi. So can you just tell me how many tree removals? It seems like there's 1 oak removal and you're mitigating with 5 oaks. Is that correct?
I believe it is, we're mitigating with 6 oaks.
And do you
Yes,
know the size that you would potentially be putting in about?
Excellent question. I believe it's a mix of anywhere between 24 and 48-inch boxes, but I have to confirm.
Great. And the planting plan appears to show careful consideration with screening for the neighbors with trees and plants as well as fencing. But can you walk me through the considerations that you made for privacy with the neighbors with the planting and fencing?
Absolutely. Yeah, that was a consideration for both sides. So on the southern edge of the property, that's where we wanted to do a little bit more of an intensive approach to screening. So we wanted it to still feel natural and in keeping with the community of plants that are already there. So we tried to mix in a couple different species of trees, and all of them will get about, that critical 15 to 20 feet height. So they won't be too overwhelming, but they'll create kind of a varied canopy along that back wall. And that'll be consistent along the whole south side of the property. On the north side, we've got a bit more of a kind of like a neighborhood feel. So it's still a single family residential, project 6 times over, but we still have that kind of urban design component to it where we want this to feel like a smaller neighborhood, but with enough individuality for each of the properties. So we're introducing a street tree. We tried to carefully distribute the oak trees. Those are those dark green symbols on the plan you can see. So each of those is a mitigation tree to replace the tree that was removed. So we're trying to distribute those through the whole project so that eventually in 5 to 10 years when they start to grow up, it'll just feel like all the homes were built around this kind of existing oak woodland. Is that enough detail?
Yeah, that's great. Is there any reason there's no trees to the north of the driveway that's leading to lot 6, that driveway? Is there a privacy concern there? Or?
There's an easement there for potential connection.
Okay, great.
To the west. I wanted to put one.
Fencing. Is there fencing proposed, and where, and heights?
Yes. We have so in the front of the property, we're trying to do more decorative walls and enclosures and just a little bit of privacy, but you could tell from the perspectives that were produced earlier, those are usually lower, nicer materials and finishes, Santa Barbara stone, wood fencing in the case of lot 1, because you can see that wood fence goes underneath the existing oak tree. So we, instead of doing a really aggressive footing for a wall there, we wanted to do a wood fence so that we just have to do a few post holes and then let the existing oak roots kind of go underneath and go into that kind of natural garden area out front. But everybody else has stone walls out front. And in the backyards and side yards, we're proposing, correct me if I'm wrong, architecture team, but we're proposing solid walls. And those are partially retaining because the lots are stepping down, but then there's a freestanding component between them for privacy.
Great. And those walls, material-wise, are they stucco walls?
Yeah. As of right now, we're proposing a white, like a plaster finish to match the architecture.
Great. And I know we talked about the stormwater management a bit, and I was looking at the civil plan and I'm a bit confused because they're doing like gravel retention in the roundabout area or the cul-de-sac area, and then also at the street side. And you show planting in that area. So I guess I'm just, could you clarify if it's gravel or planting? And you also had trees in that cul-de-sac area.
Sorry, can you scoop down to the detail for me so I can talk through that? Gravel retention. I'd need to look at these a bit more closely. I think these might be some specific areas that look like they're between paving where we're actually trying to collect and store some water, but the intention is for the bioswale along the bottom of the property to be vegetated. You know, we're gonna have trees, tall grasses, shrubs, and there's some imagery in that sheet that just got passed by. So you can get kind of a hint of the character for those areas. So that's the upper right-hand corner. You can see it's there's some gray, yeah, exactly. So
Yeah.
those
Okay.
are some of the lower elements, yeah.
So the area that shows trees and the gravel, is that accurate, or are you guys still looking at that? As far as, will trees really be there?
Board
I'll
member,
have to,
if I could jump in, Scott, just real quick, there are in the new road right of way, there's a couple of areas that we needed to get some storage, some below ground storage of water for the areas of the new road that will be draining. So those are accurate to the with the details that were provided. If there were some trees in there, I think in those couple specific areas of the new road sidewalk area, I don't know that the trees would be appropriate in those areas.
Great. Okay, thank you. And if you could go to the landscape plan, I just had a quick question about, it's kind of in that same area between lot 5 and lot 4, that property line, there's 18. What's 18? Sewer lift station. Okay.
yes,
And you're going to screen that with vegetation, correct? It says.
precisely. And we
Great.
have,
And then,
sorry.
go ahead.
I was going to say there's an area up front where we have to provide clear access for maintenance, but everywhere we can screen, we will.
Yeah. Okay. And then the paving is not permeable, correct? It's just regular pavers proposing.
We're looking to introduce some permeable pavers where we can. And in particular, we think the driveways are a great opportunity for that. So there's precast concrete pavers that we can use, and then maybe have like a solid band in between for containment, and then just create a little bit of additional character. So it's not just a field of paving. And then you'll notice the overall theme for the property is we're trying to break up all the big swaths of paving. So in the back, where we're trying to kind of maximize programming and use for the owners, in the front, we're generally trying to break things up. So we're doing, precast concrete pads with planted joints, or where we're transitioning between spaces, we're trying to use flagstone, gravel walkways, a blend to keep it more garden-like. So there's a lot of variety, but there's also a lot of porosity. There's lots of places for water to infiltrate, so we don't have to just drain things out to the street.
Great, thank you. And my last question was just to confirm there isn't going to be street parking, correct?
Correct.
All right, those are all my questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Board Member Ziegler, do you have any questions, please? I think you're muted.
Am I unmuted?
No, I can hear you now.
Okay. I've heard a lot from the neighbors about how congested this area is going to become and how unhappy they are. And it makes me think, what can we do? Well, we can reduce the size of these houses to an FAR that's maybe 85%, which would help. But I'm wondering, is it because of the water issues that you couldn't do an underground storage for garages? So you'd have a massive garage for all the houses underground, which would free up some space on the land that wouldn't be occupied by a garage. Now, I'm assuming because of the water issue, you probably can't do it, but it's a question I have.
Okay.
If I understood the question, you're asking if we would do a podium type underground parking structure that would provide parking for all of the homes.
Yes.
And then build the homes on top of that structure or something like that.
Yeah.
I think that's really infeasible. for a project of this nature. It's just not something that is possible to do here. That would be cost prohibitive. It really be a massive, construction undertaking for this project. And I think it would really create a very untraditional type of single family home where people want to be able to use their garages and be proximate to the garages and be able to use them for, storage purposes, et cetera. So that is not a feasible proposal for us.
Okay. It's being creative.
That's your only question?
Oh, yeah, right.
Okay. I actually have no questions. I think you guys have made some very good questions and insightful observations. So with that being said,
Could I ask
did
one
I
more
skip
question?
you? Did I skip you? No, go ahead. Go ahead, Joe.
Thought of something I would like to ask.
Sure.
Is the property just north of there, the Penn Avenue property, street, and houses on that part of the street, is that in the county or the city still? Or the county still?
That remains in the county. We had done initial outreach to all of the homeowners along Penn Place, asking if they wanted to annex as part of our application to annex. Unfortunately, at that time, there really wasn't interest in doing so. So those do remain in the county, although Penn Place, as I mentioned previously, is a private road, not a county public road.
Is that road owned by the owners or is it just a private road?
It's owned by the owners of the residences on Penn Place.
And one other question, the area that's landscaped just to the south of the cul-de-sac right there that we're looking at right now, was that left landscape and really wide from house 4, house 5 because of the design, or was it left vacant because the cul-de-sac is the lowest point in that property? And there was some thought of maybe not putting a building there because it may flood.
The lowest portion of the site is actually along the property line between lots 4 and 5.
Correct.
And you're correct. There's an easement over that area because essentially we have all of our storm drain infrastructure going through there. We also have our sewer lift station, again, because it's the lowest portion of the site. So the wastewater for lots 2 through 6 drain to that lift station, and then it's pumped back out to Hope Avenue. So there was consideration in that being the lowest portion of the site, again, for drainage and infrastructure purposes.
It is so small I can't see. There's a square right in the left portion of it.
That's the sewer lift station.
The sewer lift station, and that lifts the sewer.
With number 18. Sorry, the number 18 is
that takes the sewage back out to Hope Avenue to the public sewage. True?
Correct.
That's correct. So I think it's a 15-foot easement on either side of the property line, which you see there in the bold black. So no structures or any type of development other than the lift station and infrastructure would be built in that area.
Okay, thank you, Chair Miller.
All right, thank you. So let's move on to comments. Board Member Kalas, do you have comments, please?
Yes, I do have comments. And these are, I've tried to base these based on the comments that I reviewed in the last meeting that I was not in attendance at. So I appreciate the applicant's introduction of some more neutral colors on the color palette. And I think The last round, we saw a lot more white on the buildings, and I think the neutral color palettes are helpful. I also appreciate their attempt to integrate some sloped roofs, which are more indicative of the surrounding neighborhoods, and their gesture towards reduction in size of parcels or of the properties, and also the introduction of the wood siding. I think all of that helps. That being said, I still don't think this project is compatible with the neighborhood. I think the FARs and the sizes of the homes are far out of scale for the neighborhood. I think there were some opportunities to probably look at some architecture that's both close by as well as sort of California typical that could have been better solutions for the neighborhood. Specifically, I think the area over near Willow Glen and Grove could have been looked at in relationship to some Eichler designs that would have provided an opportunity for the architects to do something modern, which was desirable, or that was noted in the last meeting as being desirable by the owners to do something modern. Another option would have been to look at there's a nice little home at 3814, I think it's Connie Way. That was the one that the applicants were alluding to in terms of a flat roof. It's a nice, simple, stripped down sort of Mediterranean home. There's also an older home in rather poor maintenance, but the volumes are very typical and similar to this. And that's at the corner of La Cumbra, and I think it's Pueblo, right at the top of La Cumbra before it dips down for the church. I think that would have been a great sort of archetype to look at in terms of the volumes that we're looking at here. I don't think that the sandstone is something that you see in this neighborhood, so I don't think it's an appropriate material to be used specifically on the homes. It might be successful in the landscape, but I think where it's used to completely skin a one-story or two-story element, that's out of characteristic for the neighborhood. I also think the standing seam roofs are out of characteristic for the neighborhood. And in general, I find that basically we're looking at the same project with a couple of sloped roofs and some minor square footage adjustments made to it, but that there has been no significant effort to address the board's concerns from the last meeting based on my observations of that meeting. So I am not currently in support of the project as it stands.
Thank you. Board Member Motisha, do you have any comments, please?
Yes, I'll follow that up. Being a licensed architect and from Santa Barbara and grew up in this area, and own property in the area, and a developer myself, Santa Barbara is an eclectic, it's everything. And developers, they're not people who come in and just want to put a price on something and make a killing and run away. This is property owned by people who are going to live here. And this whole area of San Roque, or what is now San Roque, didn't used to be San Roque. San Roque was closer to town. It's pushed out. And there is everything there. And I've been on this board. I've been around town for a long time. All developers, they want to develop property that's vacant in town. And here we have a big piece of property that's been vacant for a long time, owned by the same family for a long time, and they would like to develop it now. There's nothing wrong with that. I think the people around the property that have sent in letters that are complaining of what happens is typical of what happens to every development that ever happens in this town or anywhere. You try to do.
Appreciate your comment on the project itself, not make it a political statement, please.
I'm not making it a political statement. Thank you. Thank you. I think, one last comment. I'll make one last comment. The problems that the neighborhood thinks with this problem, they developed them themselves. We have two streets here now that are right next to each other. It could have been combined, could have solved a lot of problems that the neighbors now are complaining about. The lots could have been bigger, could have been a lot more landscaping, the houses apart from each other, not required to be as close as they are. And I like this project. I'm for this project. Didn't get on this board to tell people that they can't design what they would like to design. And this is an area that is so different. I'll stop right there. I support this project 100% because it's a lot like a lot of the other projects that have been developed in this whole area. Thank you.
Okay. Moving on, Board Member Klein, do you have any comments, please?
Yes. I appreciate the use of high quality materials and the consideration of Santa Barbara materials with the wood and the stone. And I also appreciate the variety of style within the homes. I think that fits the neighborhood as far as the architecture design. I would ask that you study the street trees along Hope and the cul-de-sac that we talked about with the gravel retention, because I think those street trees and that gravel retention area is important to get trees, and I don't understand how that would happen at this point with the gravel. So I'd like to understand that better. The palms and the oaks and the swale, I would say study that and make sure that all works if it is a flood in that swale area. Otherwise, the plant palette is great water-wise and appropriate for the area, and the placement of trees is really well thought out as far as the massing and the bulk and the scale, really to work with the building architecture. I think that was nicely done. That's all for me.
All right, thank you. Board Member Sweeney, do you have comments, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, I have several comments. Let's see. First of all, the applicant did not address my concerns about the privacy issues between the properties. I really wanted to see a plan showing the footprints of the homes along Connie Way. I want to know where their windows are versus the windows of these proposed homes. I want to understand what the privacy issues are, and I didn't get that. So until I see that, I'm going to have a hard time. Second of all, there's a dilemma here of wanting to screen these new homes from the homes lower than they are, as the landscape architect outlined, a series of trees and hedges and palm trees and so forth. But I'm concerned that in general, and again, the city attorney has told us we're not obligated to guarantee anybody's view from any private portion of their property, window or otherwise. But in general, all of those homes are going to have their view to the mountains compromised in some ways, and I don't understand the significance of that compromise. And I understand we're not able to tell these folks they can't have two-story homes. That's fairly clear, but we can arrange trees and windows so that privacy issues and general view corridor or view areas to the mountains can be minimized. And I don't have enough information yet to understand that. Second of all, I agree with my colleague, Ms. Klas, that these homes are still too big. We asked for 85%. We didn't get it. Lots number 1 and 6 that are going to have ADUs, I would insist on 85% because the state is now telling us ADUs don't get the count. And so I hope the public understands that the state of California is implementing on us locals, taking away our local authority and not allowing us to adjust accordingly. The one tool we have left is the 85%, and so I'm going to be insistent on 85%. Second of all, I agree with Ms. Colas, standing seam metal roofs are not acceptable. And certainly the use of the term ranch style has been very disingenuous in this presentation. These are not ranch style homes. I grew up in San Luis Obispo, folks. I know what a ranch style home looks like. This project could do very well on Tank Farm Road or Broad Street in San Luis Obispo, but not Santa Barbara. I'm reading a very interesting book right now called Charleston Fancy, and I would encourage the folks from the architectural firm to look at that book to see how important it is for one to understand the spirit of a community and of Santa Barbara. We're not San Luis Obispo, we're not Santa Maria, we're not Ventura, and we're certainly not Fremont or some of the areas where the legislators are now dictating to us what we can have and what we can't have. You need to understand the spirit of Santa Barbara and its architecture, and it's somewhat in alignment with Mr. Motisha's comment, although I would argue that Mr. Motisha, we have an obligation here to assure that what we're approving is compatible with the neighborhood as we define it. That's our job here. It's not to roll over just because the drawings look nice. And certainly the architecture and presentation is a very nice presentation. But I don't believe it's where we need to be with this project on Hope Avenue. With regards to, we're not at objective standards. I'm sorry, at this point, we're not there, and I'm happy we're not there. The standards are still very subjective. And I hope the public understands that when the state makes us do objective standards, you can see the dilemma that we're going to have in terms of trying to make things compatible. There will be no ability to make things compatible because it's going to be up to an administrator sitting at a desk making that administrative decision. So I hope the public starts to understand what's being fostered on us by the state of California. In a way, these are more Eichler homes than anything else. And they're not ranch style. They're not pitched roofs. They don't have ridges. They're not there. They're not even close to Cliff May, who established our understanding of contemporary ranch style homes after the war and are sprinkled throughout California. They're not there yet. So I can't support any of what I see now. I am going to insist that we do story polls on the second story buildings, whatever they look like, before we give it project design approval. I'm going to request specifically, and I know we've requested this in the past, so I hope whoever makes the motion puts it in the motion because sometimes it's been ignored. I would like the staff to make sure that in the next presentation of this project, that a staff person from Public Works is present to explain their review of this project, the hydrology, the water courses, et cetera. Now, I know that's all been addressed by the applicant and the designer and the civil engineer. But the public has huge mistrust right now. This neighborhood is very distrustful, not only of the applicant, which is unfortunate because I think the applicant's engineers and experts are fully qualified to do what they're doing, but there's now a attitude of mistrust. And I think the only way to bridge that is to have the city's public works folks here at this public meeting sharing that statement. That's why I was questioning about why we were not made aware of where those reports were available. I think that's important. You have almost 30 people signing a petition here that are very, very unhappy. And this firm that's presenting this should know by now this is not going to work. You stumbled on 711 Milpa Street You haven't done a great job on the De La Guerra Plaza. You're stumbling on Ortega Park, and now you're stumbling again. It's because you don't understand what Santa Barbara is all about. I grew up in San Luis Obispo. I spent 40 years of my life here in Santa Barbara, and I'm just now beginning to understand how important compatibility is to our neighborhood, and that's what our finding has to be. So I would encourage that this project return, that there's an effort made to reduce and get these FARs down to 85% or less, and that we really do understand and have some documentation to understand what the privacy issues, et cetera. And then I would encourage my fellow board members to be very careful about how we establish the definition of neighborhood. And I know that the applicants and designers have followed Christopher Alexander's definition of neighborhood, but if you look at his definitions, you also know that neighborhood is defined geographically. There's a creek division between part of their circle and Monte Vista School. And then finally, I have to apologize to the community. It's my firm that forced on this community those god-awful canopies at Monte Vista School. That's part of the reason I retired early. And I'm not about to let another project go through that would do great detriment to the compatibility of this neighborhood, and this project is not it. Thank you.
I see Irma's online. Do you have anything you need to say, Irma?
Mr. Chair, yes, just with all due respect, I understand the passion that is on this board in terms of the your role and your job as design or an aesthetic board. I would just ask, just respectfully ask that you refrain from, really criticizing or staff on other projects that are not before you.
Mr. Chairs, I want to add to that. I think it's completely out of line for Mr. Sweeney to make references to other projects that he knows nothing about. And I really resent that. And I hope that you will work with him to restrain him from making those kinds of statements in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. It's not my, I try to do the best I can, and it is passionate, and hopefully Mr. Sweeney will learn from this experience. Let's move forward, please. So I want to go to Board Member Klein. Do you have any comments, please?
I already made my comments.
Okay, Board Member Ziegler, do you have any comments, please?
Yeah, I have some. I really do like the architectural style and the variety of the architecture in these in this complex. On the other hand, I agree with Kalas and with Sweeney that the houses are just too big. I came up with a garage idea which didn't work, but I do think we should probably try to get the percentage of FAR down so you can use the style of these homes, but do it in a smaller scope. I hope that's possible. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'm left, the only comments, one comment I have to say is Mr. Piker brought up the issue about the housing crisis. And I think that's kind of a misnomer here because I don't think any of these houses when they sell are going to be under $1 million. This is an expensive neighborhood. And I know these beautiful fine homes are not going to be affordable to the normal income, but that's kind of the curse of this area. A lot of people with a lot of money and a lot of influence decide to live here because this is a great place to live. And this whole attitude of a housing crisis is not really true or accurate. In my experience being here for 35 years, it's more of a housing affordability issue. And I don't think, flooding the market with more housing is going to lower the price of housing. It's expensive and it is what it is because the market forces that determine the price of property is independent from the quantity in many cases because of other underlying factors. So I don't see this as addressing the housing shortage because these are luxury homes. In fact, I wish I could live in one of these homes, but I couldn't afford it. I know I couldn't. So that's the only comment I have to say about that. And I do agree. I think the houses are way too big. And I also want to say that the whole reason that this board was created was that it was a neighborhood outcry of something that happened on the Mesa, because they were very upset how houses were being torn down and these big houses were being built and intruding in people's views and all that. And I think one needs to understand that the dynamics of Santa Barbara is because it's so expensive, because people that move here spend a lot of money on their property. It's a huge investment, and they're very attached to making sure that their investment is protected. And so one of the wonderful things about this city is that it allows people to come and voice their concerns. They can speak. It's a conversation that's a public conversation, so that it's not where a developer swoops in and rips everything out and builds whatever they want. I grew up in Santa Maria. That's exactly how it happens. I mean, most of the historical buildings of Santa Maria have been obliterated, all in the name of development. And that's not Santa Barbara. And, that's the charm and the gift and the wonderful experience that we have here. So I think that's my only comment I have to say about that. So with that being said, we need to entertain a motion. So can someone please entertain a motion? And they're here for comments only, I believe, right?
Chair Miller,
I'm going to make
project design approval today.
Okay, all right. So you can either grant project design approval or have comments otherwise. Yes, Board Member Kalas, please.
I was going to make an attempt here, and I'm assuming that there will be many comments added, but I'll make a first stab effort here. The project would be continued to the full board with the following comments. The board appreciates the efforts of the applicant to introduce neutral colors, sloped roofs, and wood siding to the project in an effort to be more compatible with the neighborhood, as well as the minor reductions in size that we see. However, the board still finds that the project is incompatible from a FAR standpoint with the immediately surrounding neighborhood. And I believe that we defined that in the previous meeting minutes, so I would just refer to that as the neighborhood definition. That the projects be reduced in size to meet the 85% guideline FAR. That the applicant consider materials that are more consistent with the neighborhood. That they consider looking at 3814 Connie Way, the project at La Cumbre Road in Pueblo, or the Willow Glen and Grove neighborhoods as possible archetypes for consideration. That the applicants address the privacy questions and concerns between the neighboring existing homes and the proposed development. That the applicants address the conflict that Ms. Klein is seeing between the gravel, I'll call it basins, and the planting plans. I'm dizzy, so I'm going to stop there. That's my motion.
All right, thank you. Do I have a second, please?
I'll second it.
All right, open for discussion.
Mr. Chair, I would like some wording in the motion about further clarification on the privacy issues, as we requested in our last meeting, and we did not see those documentation.
Does the motion holder accept that?
Yes. I'd also like to add that the sandstone,
All right, hearing no other discussion,
Is
may I have a
not-
roll?
can I also add to
Oh.
the motion that
Go ahead.
the
go ahead.
sandstone
Sorry, I
is
need to say
not,
more, but
that's okay, that the sandstone is not a compatible material, or that does not, it's not compatible with the neighborhood in the way it's being used.
Did you also add story poles? Is that something that we should add?
Yes, the board would like to request story poles for each lot that has a two-story element.
so can I bring up a concern about that? We're still, I feel like we're still in design development, so I don't know if the story poles are ready yet, but I'm just saying that as a suggestion.
Mr. Chair, story poles, certainly I would support that. But we may not want to do them so soon. I suspect we're not going to be ready to give this project design approval at its next visit. We might be in a position where we would be at the next meeting, and maybe that's the meeting we ask for story poles. But unless we feel that we're ready to give it project design approval at the next meeting, then yes, certainly story poles are in order before that action happens, but we may not be there yet.
Okay, it's at the
Can I make
discretion.
a suggestion that we change the language to something on the order of, the board anticipates that they will be requesting story poles as part of their project approval in the future?
I'll
Okay.
second that.
Okay, may I have a roll call, please?
Thank you, Chair Miller and board members. I will now start the roll call vote. Vice Chair Sweeney,
Yes.
Board Member Colossus,
Yes.
Board Member Klein,
Yes.
Board Member Motisha,
No.
Could you say that
Board
again?
Member,
I didn't hear it.
No.
Board Member Ziegler,
Yes.
Chair Miller.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes 5-1.
Chair Miller, I'd just like to make one final comment of clarification. We did reach out to the neighbors several times to invite them to meet with us while we were developing these plans in order to get their feedback, especially with related to these issues of privacy. However, they refused to meet with us during that period, and we went forward with the development of the plans and then sent them copies several weeks before this meeting with an invitation to meet with them and get their concerns directly prior to the hearing. So at this point, I would, just want to say that I invite them once again to meet with us at any time, either in person in our offices if they've been vaccinated, et cetera, or through a Zoom call or video conferencing, and we'd be more than happy to discuss any of their concerns. I think there's a lot of misunderstanding out there about the nature of the project, and I think some of that can be clarified. And furthermore, we can be responsive to their concerns while we're developing the plans rather than after we finish developing them. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you very much, Mr. Picard. I hope they are listening. Very good. Thank you. Okay, with that said, I believe that's the last item on the agenda. I'm going to conclude the design board for May 24th, 2021. Thank you very much, you guys.